All right, Clay, welcome in. Top of the ninth, Reds and Dodgers tied 4-4. Clay, how's your day going?
It's not going too bad, all things considered. I got pretty excited there for a bit, and now I'm nervous.
Not too bad, but also not too good.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can change that and make it a great day. Emilio Pagan in for the Reds, looking to shut down this Dodger lineup in the top of the ninth. And it is 4-4. Dodgers due up Michael Conforto, and then top of the lineup, Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani. First pitch is a strike, and second pitch now from Pagan catches the inside corner for a strike, 0-2. It's been an interesting game nonetheless, Clay. We'll talk about it obviously all once we go live, but couple home runs, ball was flying early on, and thought maybe we'd be in here for a high scoring matchup. Didn't necessarily end up that way.
Yeah, right field's the place to go tonight, isn't it? And seeing Alexis Diaz in the game was just, man, I just hate to see that. I don't know. I didn't like it. It didn't look right to me. And of course, the Reds didn't tee off on him. So,
Right.
yikes.
Well, we'll see what happens. Obviously, we got ninth inning still coming up here. Check swing from Conforto called a ball, and then pitch fouled off, 1-2 now. Yeah, it was an interesting game. Some fun moments, some head scratchers, I guess, some challenging moments like the Reds' eighth just now. Reds' eighth, Espinal Steer Joe. Not a
Not good enough.
daunting portion of the lineup for sure. We'll talk about the trade deadline a little bit later on in the show and get your thoughts on that. I know you put out a article with Just Baseball a day or two ago, so interested in hearing your opinion on some targets and realistic prices for some of these guys. So that'll be a fun
Yeah.
conversation. Make sure you stick around for that, everybody in the chat. Fouled off by Conforto, 1-2 still.
Yeah. The deadline stuff, if anybody has any deadline questions, suggestions, trade proposals, put them in the chat. Of course, any type of a super chat would be highlighted immediately as well. Look at me just trying to do your all's work for you like that.
I appreciate that. And just a fair warning to those in the chat, we're going to do our best to scroll back through this moment for any questions. But just a heads up, as always, since we typically are a little bit behind you guys since I'm streaming, I do have chat hidden to avoid any surprises. But we'll do our best. And obviously during the broadcast, I know you all will send a lot of questions as Conforto fouls off yet another one. Pagan now readying for his 10th pitch of this first at bat of the top of the ninth. Pagan's been working a lot lately, it feels, Clay. So 10 pitches here in this first at bat, probably not what Tito was hoping for.
Yeah, and Tito's gone to him a lot. He's one of the arms, obviously, that they trust the most, and rightfully so. He's pitched well this year, but I am kind of worried about his usage. What was it? Every day this weekend he was used this past weekend?
Him and Santillan both 3 days straight, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I like it actually. Like Tito said, we need the sweep. Like we need the momentum. We need this win. Every win counts. And he managed that way. I'm not complaining about it at all. I'm glad that he did it. But it is still like it is what it is, and that's somewhat scary. And now seeing him, and you want to go with your best option right here, top of the ninth in a tie game. I get it, but man, I'm worried about the arm on Pagan.
Absolutely. Conforto watches ball 4 outside. He'll take first, and it'll bring up Mookie Betts with a runner on now. Betts on the day is officially 2 for 4. He was, I'll say, gifted a single in the 5th on what I thought was an error by Ellie De La Cruz. Gifted a single on that, and so he is 2 for 4 as he swings through strike 1. This one is hit high in the air to right field. Connor Joe is under it. One away for Pagan. Now, this is a big one for me, Clay. Ohtani on the night, 4 strikeouts. Quite frankly, looked a little silly against Lodolo early on. Ashcraft able to get him in the 7th. Certainly not a guy you'd expect to strike out 5 times. Are you a little cautious here, even though there's a man on first, or with Will Smith on deck? Are you still going after Ohtani here?
That's why this team is so tough to beat. No matter what the answer is, it's wrong. It doesn't matter which path you go. It's not really one better than another, in my opinion. And that's what makes the Dodgers so good. And they're such a deep team. They're experienced. They're all-star players left and right, and that is the class of the National League right here. And the Reds are, tied with them in the 9th.
Well, first pitch to Ohtani looks right down the middle. Ohtani fouls it off to the right side. So 0-1. Second pitch is a ball outside. So now we'll see what Pagan wants to do with the 1-1 pitch. Trevino setting up on the outside part of the plate and just misses outside. 2-1. Trevino wanted that one for sure. Held it just an extra second. Didn't get the call from home plate umpire. Replay shows it nicked the corner. Should have been a strike, but nonetheless, 2-1 now to Ohtani from Pagan. Cutter swung on and missed. 2-2 now to Ohtani. Can he strike him out for the 5th time tonight? You hear the crowd kind of get behind Emilio Pagan here. They want to see a 5th strikeout for sure. Ohtani, 273 on the year. Tonight, only the 6th time in his career that he struck out 4 times. The pitch from Pagan. Swung on and driven to right field, but Joe is under it. Out number 2. And Pagan through the top of the order so far, avoiding any damage. But here comes Will Smith. So like you said, it doesn't get any easier, because even if you get Will Smith, then you got Freddie Freeman, who's 3 for 4 on the night. So the gauntlet doesn't end.
Game.
Yep.
It's a video game lineup.
Meanwhile, the Reds are sending up Espinal, Steer, Joe, Trevino. Quite a difference. First pitch to Will Smith is down and away on the cutter for ball 1. Appreciate everybody joining us in the chat. As always, again, apologize. Can't really keep up with it a whole lot during the pregame, or during the game, I guess, portion of the show. But hope that you are having a swell Tuesday as well.
I'll scroll through the chat, see if there's anything.
Yeah. You know how to star chats? Can you do that from your... If you hover over it, does it... Okay. If you hover over it, it doesn't show a star in the top right for you? All right. That's fine.
No.
Well, feel free to add any questions that you see in there to the rundown that we have, and we can always revisit them later on. Throw a username on there if you don't mind, and we can make sure we acknowledge them when we get to it. Will Smith driven to left, off the wall. Gavin Lux grabs it on the warning track, and the throw is bobbled by De La Cruz. Run scores. Dodgers lead 5-4. It's an RBI double for Will Smith. And that gauntlet proves costly for the Reds. James Outman, who was in running for the Dodgers at first base, comes all the way around to score on that RBI double from the Dodgers catcher. And the Reds will have to play comeback here in the bottom of the 9th. Again, it doesn't get easier. Freddie Freeman now 3 for 4 on the night with a runner in scoring position. This is one of those scenarios, Clay, with Hernandez on deck. I probably wouldn't be giving Freddie Freeman a left-handed at-bat against Emilio Pagan, the right-hander. Wouldn't be giving him a whole lot to hit, that is for sure.
Yeah, I don't know about, bringing in a lefty to face Freeman. I think he's too good that, then you have a lefty against Hernandez potentially. Like, if it doesn't go well, there's 2 outs, so that does play a factor. But I just don't know, man.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, first base open with Freddie Freeman with a runner in scoring position. I think I would rather take my chances against Teoscar Hernandez. Freeman 3 for 4 tonight. Teoscar Hernandez 1 for 4 with a double. But I don't know, just feel
it's
like
this lineup, man.
Yeah.
It's this lineup. No matter what you do, you're not going to feel confident. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
And credit to the Dodgers, they've drafted, developed, they've signed, they've traded, they've done everything you need to do to build a team.
Yep.
They haven't just drafted and developed and rebuild. They add in free agency, they make trades, they make aggressive trades, they do it all. And, it's gotten them where they are. And I get it. They've got a ton of money and big market. I'm not comparing them to the Reds. I'm just saying they've built a great team.
Well, Reds decide to go after Freddie Freeman, and Pagan gets Freeman to strike out swinging to end the threat. Reds will go to the bottom of the 9th looking for a run with 8, 9, and 1 due up. We'll see what Terry Francona decides to do. That is scheduled to be Benson, Trevino, and Lux. Also see what the Dodgers decide to do on the mound. Don't see yet on game day what they're doing there. So we'll monitor that. If anybody happens to see it before I do, let me know. But yeah, I mean, look, this lineup, especially the top half of it, is just one of those lineups that you just don't have a whole lot of great options against. And certainly there was a situation earlier in the game where Freddie Freeman came up to bat with 2 outs in the inning. That was in the 7th with Graham Ashcraft. And at least personally would have loved to see or have a lefty at your disposal to be able to go to in that scenario. Try to keep the game at 4-3. Instead, they stick with Ashcraft. He faces Freddie Freeman, gives up an RBI single, and the game was tied. So we'll talk about that decision during the broadcast, during the post game, obviously. So I don't want to get too much into your thoughts here now, but certainly one of the trade deadline targets has to be a bullpen arm, and at least personally would like to be that a lefty. So again, don't answer yet, Clay. I know you are itching to give me your input right now, but want to make sure we save it for the podcast and the post game. So let's see. It is going to be Alex Vesia for the Dodgers.
Yeah, he's somebody I wrote about Vesia on Sunday, and he's somebody that you all may know his name from previous years with the Dodgers, but good lefty who's starting to get some closing opportunities because of a Tanner Scott injury. And, I wouldn't be celebrating knowing that he's coming on the mound.
Yeah, so far this year, 2-0 with a 2.47 ERA in 50 appearances. Does have 3 saves on the year, 60 strikeouts in 43 2/3 innings. So definitely able to strike guys out. Is a lefty, though, as you mentioned. So Will Benson will stay on the bench. And Rhys Hines, looking for a little power, a little strike of lightning here, will come up and get his chance at Vesia, but not before. Clay, look, I know baseball is doing everything they can to speed up the game here. Dodgers taking a mound visit before we get a single pitch here. So love that. Love the fact that they're not prepared for a pinch hitter here and have to come out and talk about how to approach Rhys Hines here in the bottom of the 9th.
Oh, man.
Alex Vesia drafted in 2018. He was a 17th round pick, 507 overall out of Cal State East Bay. Stands 6'1", weighs in at 209. 29-year-old lefty. Again, will face Rhys Hines to start the bottom of the ninth. Hines stands in and takes a look at strike one from Vesia. Hines this season in 14 games hitting 119, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs. OPS sitting at only 425. Second pitch, 86 mile an hour on the outside corner for a strike. 0-2 now to Hines without taking the bat off his shoulder. O2 is high. 92 mile an hour fastball, not overpowering, Clay, but obviously has many pieces to put together.
Yeah, he's just a really good pitcher.
Check swing at a ball in the dirt. He didn't go. 2-2 to Hines. Trevino on deck, but Ty Stevenson in the dugout with a helmet on. Whether he hits for Lux or Trevino, to be determined, I guess. If you hit for Lux, though, I guess got to figure out what you got to do in the outfield as Hines swings through strike three. One down in the inning for Vesia. It will be Trevino that stands in. And Tyler Stevenson will climb the stairs to head to the on-deck circle. He'll likely hit for Lux. First pitch to Trevino is in there for a strike. Trevino 1 for 3. He hit his double in the fifth. That was his first extra base hit in over a month. Wouldn't be opposed to another extra base hit here from the Reds catcher. Ball inside, 1-1, evens the count to Trevino. Trevino early in the season, one of the Reds' hottest hitters, has cooled off of late, obviously. This one is fouled back. Will it stay in play? It does. Will Smith catches that one for the second out, and the Reds down to their last opportunity. And it will, in fact, be Tyler Stevenson. And again, another mound visit by the Dodgers.
Golly. What is going on?
I don't know. This umpire's having a laugh with the Dodgers dugout. I don't know.
Awesome.
Stevenson now stands in. Here we go. Vesia Stevenson. First pitch is down for a ball.
It's a good take.
Stevenson, 246 on the year, 4 doubles, 6 home runs, 17 RBI. Oh, I'm sorry. That's his career pinch hitting. 77 plate appearances, 246 average, 4 doubles, 6 home runs, 17 RBI. Swings at a ball above the strike zone. 1-1, fouls it off. Are you somewhat caught up now, Clay?
I'm able to watch it on Big Inning right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the blackout area, but Big Inning doesn't have blackout. So I am watching that live. My very legal stream that I have is still on Trevino. So
Yep. Stevenson fouls off the Vesia offering, and it's 1-2, Reds down to their final strike. The pitch from Vesia. Swung on and missed. Reds fall 5-4. Clay, let's do a show.
Ground ball. McLean, second. 12 in a row. The oldest team in professional baseball has its 5th ever winning streak of a dozen straight.
Our job every day is to try to kick somebody's ass. I mean, that's why we're here.
That is caught. Left center. Reds win. And this ball is launched high and very deep to right, long gone. It's second of the night. Ellie De La Cruz. Short lead for Pena. Larkin drills it. Do you believe this? That's going to be gone. Back to back. Walk-off home runs. How about this? He's back. He's back. He's back.
And a swing and a drive. Deep left field. This one belongs to the Reds. Swung on and hit deep to left field. That ball is going to be gone. Home run. And the Reds put it 5-4.
Goes to second one. Around the first. Got a double play. And the Reds sweep the Cubs. Breaking ball. Hit high. Hit deep. Way back there. And gone. Into the second deck and left. Christian Encarnacion Strand walks it off. Archer does it in his major league debut. He gets the final 3 outs, and the Reds get an extra inning win. A thriller 5-4.
Swung on. Fly ball. Hit to deep right field. That ball is going to be gone. A grand slam home run by Mike Cameron.
2 outs, 2 on. Reds down by 1. Larkin down the line. It's a winner. It's a winner. Here comes Tucker. Here comes Steins. Larkin's won the game. Barry Larkin gets mobbed. Look at this scene. It's synergy.
The stretch, the pause and the pitch. And a line drive, base hit left center field. A single for Aaron Boone. And this one belongs to the Reds. The Reds have won 8 in a row.
Kobayashi with a long look turns it loose, and Dunn hits it to deep right. It's all over. And this one belongs to the Reds. The Reds have won their 5th game in a row. They've defeated the Cleveland Indians on an Adam Dunn 3-run home run, 4-2. In on the corners at first and third. 2 on, nobody out. Here's Roy Trin pitching, no bunt. Ground ball by the third baseman into left field. Dave Bruce rounds third. This one belongs to the Reds.
That's hit pretty good. Guess what? He doesn't need speed. That's gone. He's the king of the Queen City tonight.
With 1 out here in the 11th inning, you sure got to go now.
1 out, pull down the left field line. That ball is going to get the winning run in. Here comes Dave Bruce rounding third, heading toward the plate. And this one belongs to the Reds.
Huge situation for Votto. Why you paying the big bucks to deliver the goods with 2 outs in the 9th inning? Can he do it? In the gap, right center field, and Votto delivers the goods.
Hit deep center field. Hank Hill going back at the warning track. Oh, he goes one. It's gone. Joey Votto is delivered.
All right, Clay. Heartbreaking loss, I guess, to say the least. Reds fall 5-4 to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Look, we talked about it in the pregame show, or I guess not even pregame show, just during the 9th inning. This is a Dodgers lineup that does not give you any breaks, and unfortunately tonight for Reds pitching, unable to break through when it mattered the most, and unfortunately fall 5-4. But I guess the real question for me, for you, for everybody in the chat is, did anybody really expect to come in and win this series? Like, I know everybody was excited about the way the Reds were playing. They had won 12 of 16 coming in. They were on a roll. But this is still the Dodgers. And despite the fact that the Reds were able to sweep the Dodgers last year, they came in to this series at 61-45. They have one of the best lineups in all of the National League, if not all of it, Major League Baseball. And we were catching pitching matchups that, quite frankly, we knew were going to be struggles the entire series. Tomorrow doesn't get any easier. They go against Shohei Ohtani as the starting pitcher. So, look, I'm going to do my best this show, and I know people in the chat aren't going to like it. I'm going to do my best this show not to overreact. And it's going to be difficult. I know there's a lot of things that are frustrating from tonight specifically. The last two nights, quite frankly, defensive miscues last night, missed opportunities tonight, pitching miscues tonight. But Clay, just overall coming into the series, what was your feeling and how are you now 2 games into the series now that the Dodgers have won the first 2?
Yeah, and that game was absolutely brutal. But if like I did not expect the Dodgers specific results to change anything about the deadline for me. Like, I still think that they should add. I don't think that the Dodger games, a 3-game set, when you've already played 100 other games, would sway me one way or another. This game tonight is a game that they should have won. They got a fantastic outing from Nick Lodolo. It wasn't, what you would look at a box score and say, oh my gosh. But this is the Dodgers that he just went through and held them at bay and gave the Reds a good chance to win. The bullpen, specifically Ashcraft, they're kind of flaked apart there. But, man, you have to win tomorrow now. I would have been okay with 1 of 3, but getting swept, it would suck. But at the end of the day, I still think you need to buy. I do. I don't ever look at these games right before the deadline and overvalue them when we have 100 other games before this that we can value as well.
I mean, how can you sit here and watch tonight and have an offense who in the 8th inning when you need it the most has Espinal, Steer, and Connor Joe coming to the plate? Espinal, I agree with the decision to have to pinch it for Fraley in the 5th. You had bases loaded, and you needed a big moment there. And sending Fraley, even though he had the homer earlier on in the game, you needed a moment there. That left on right matchup with Dreyer in the game gave you that opportunity to score a run there. It didn't work out, obviously, but I do think it was the right call. But what you would have loved to have in that moment was a right-handed bat that you actually trusted beyond Santiago Espinal, because that's the issue, is that not that the pinch hitter was Santiago Espinal, but that was your only option. That's the biggest issue for me. And that's ultimately, again, you have Connor Joe that has to hit in the 8th. You have Espinal who has to hit in the 8th because you don't have any other options. That's the biggest issue. And the number one reason why you have to go buy, because the depth on this team is just not good enough. And this is not a knock on Santiago Espinal. He has done his job. He's been hitting pretty well of late, but he's not going to hit for power. He plays a really good defense. He made a great play later in the game defensively that I made a note of in the 8th against Andy Pages. So, Espinal deserves his credit, and I don't think he's the first guy off of this team if the Reds do make a move. But the truth of the matter is that doesn't mean that the lineup is good enough to be playoff contenders. And that is the challenge for me, is that when you have to turn to guys like Espinal in the 5th with bases loaded, that's the problem.
Yeah, and it really starts from CES not being good enough and Steer not being good enough. Matt McClain, like, these guys were core pieces, or so they thought, and they weren't good enough. That's why you have to go out and get Connor Joe off the waiver wire or small trade, whatever it was. And like, none of these players are good enough to beat the Dodgers. Huge surprise. Like, people can complain in the chat all they want. If you came in thinking the Reds were just going to roll through the Dodgers, then you just haven't watched enough baseball. But that doesn't mean that the Reds are good enough to go into the playoffs and make a bunch of noise, which is exactly why I think that they need to address this roster. Like, every single time we get to the deadline and the Reds aren't 10 games up, we shouldn't just sell. Like, that is an absurd way to think, and it's kind of what's gotten them here right now, which is every year they're too careful. They don't take risks. They don't do this. They won't do that. And you hover around 500 and it comes to the deadline and you put a ton of emphasis on 3 games the week of and let that determine your entire strategy. Like, I just think that's bonkers. And it's exactly why I think what you've highlighted and why the Reds lost this game tonight is because they don't have enough talent right now. But were they not tied? Did they not go toe-to-toe to some extent? They are not light years away. They can buy at this deadline and still become a team that can get to the playoffs. All you got to do is get there. You never know what happens once you get there. We see it every year. Odd things happen. So to me, no, I'm not going to overreact and say that the Reds need to sell because honestly, I've seen enough of that.
Well, let's get into it. We've talked a little bit already. We'll talk more later, but first, want to give you the box score recap for those that are listening on Wednesday morning or didn't get a chance to see the whole game. So, box score recap, as always, brought to our friend Nicholas P. Kirby. Reds looking to even the series against the Dodgers. Game 2 from Great American Ballpark on Tuesday night saw Tyler Glasnow take the mound for the Dodgers, coming off a 12 strikeout performance. Meanwhile, Nick Lodolo took the mound for the Redlegs, looking to expand on his last outing, one that saw him strike out 8 in a complete game 4-hit shutout against the Washington Nationals. Lodolo recorded the first 6 outs via strikeout against the daunting Dodgers lineup, but sprinkled between those strikeouts was a Freddie Freeman single and a Tommy Edman home run, a ball that he hit just 94.1 miles per hour off the bat with a 36-degree launch angle. Expected batting average of just .090, but magically went out 342 feet for a 2-run home run. No luck needed in the bottom of the 4th, though. That's when, after a walk to Austin Hayes, 5-hole hitter Jake Fraley hit an absolute monster shot to right field for a no-doubt home run and a tie game. The rally didn't end there, though. 2 batters later, Noelvi Marte took advantage of the ball flying out of Great American Ballpark as he added an opposite field solo home run, giving the Reds a 3-2 lead. The Reds load the bases in the bottom of the 5th with a Jose Trevino double, and then walks to Gavin Lux and Matt McLean, but could only muster 1 run on a fielder's choice by Ellie De La Cruz, and the score stood 4-2. Lodolo would get Freddie Freeman to ground out to start the 6th, and then his day would be done. Final line for Lodolo, 5 1/3 innings pitched, 2 runs, 6 hits, 1 walk, striking out a season-high 11. Reds turned to Graham Ashcraft in the top of the 7th after striking out Miguel Rojas to start the inning. Pinch hitter Michael Conforto walked, and then Mookie Betts singled on a bloop to right. Ohtani struck out for the 4th time on the evening. Then Will Smith hit an RBI single to left field. Freddie Freeman then hit his 3rd single of the night to drive in Betts and draw the score even at 4. Tony Santillan came in and pitched a perfect 8th. And a leadoff walk by Emilio Pagan in the top of the 9th would come around to score on a Will Smith double to left field, giving the Dodgers a 5-4 lead. Reds go down in order in the bottom of the 9th. Dodgers clinched the series, improved to 63-45 on the year. Meanwhile, the Reds fall to 56-52, and as of this recording, sit 2.5 games back of the San Diego Padres for the last wild card spot. Padres are currently in the bottom of the 3rd, leading 1-0 over the New York Mets. So look, Clay, a lot went into it. I think ultimately there's a lot of conversation that we have to have, and just a quick rundown for everybody. We're going to talk about Nick Lodolo. We're going to talk about the bullpen. We're going to talk about Jake Fraley. We're going to talk about Noelvi Marte's home run. We're going to talk about all of these things, including the trade deadline. So appreciate you all tuning in, and certainly we will get to all of those conversations. But first, we have a deep drive of the game. And of course, it goes to Jake Fraley. His 4th inning 2-run home run was hit 103.5 miles per hour off the bat, 31-degree launch angle, which combined for 405-foot home run deep into the seats in right field. Fraley's 6th of the season. Increased the Reds' win probability 22.8%, making it 53.2% overall. DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks as always to our friends at DSC. Look, Clay, I want to start with positives tonight. We talked about it at the top. I didn't want to overreact. I want to start with positives. And the first positive, obviously, is Nick Lodolo. Lodolo now on a little bit of a streak. I know you tweeted about it, 5 1/3 tonight. 2 runs on 6 hits, struck out a season high 11. What'd you like out of him? Not only tonight, but over the last month plus from Lodolo.
Yeah, he's been awesome. His July start, 6 innings, 3 runs, 6 innings, no runs, 7 innings, 2 runs, 9 innings, no runs, and then tonight, 5 1/3 with 2 runs. I just think his breaking stuff has been excellent, and he's commanding the zone well, especially when he needs to. He's mixing his pitches well. He's keeping batters off balance is really what it is, and you see a ton of uncomfortable bats against him. And tonight, he was striking everybody out, and oftentimes that leads to high pitch counts and, having to exit the game earlier than you would like. I I don't mind that. I'd rather him strike out a bunch of Dodgers than, pitch to more contact and try to go 7 or 8, especially against a team like this. Overall, I was really impressed, and honestly, like, he gives me a lot of hope about this rotation for the rest of the season.
Look, if the Reds want to have any hope of making a run in the playoffs, the starting pitching is obviously first and foremost in that equation. And Nick Lodolo has shown an ability to be part of that equation. Obviously, we'll talk about Hunter Green later on in his rehab start tonight. But the starting pitching in general has been very good. The thing that has let them down, however, is this bullpen. And even though we had it later in the rundown, Clay, I want to get right into the bullpen now, specifically Graham Ashcraft. And I'm interested in your opinion here. There were a lot of people that were really high on Graham Ashcraft and his potential out of the bullpen, given his metrics and his peripherals and all of these things. He's 6-4 on the year with a 3.68 ERA, but it doesn't necessarily feel, to me at least, that he's really been that shutdown bullpen arm that we thought he could be. Do you think the potential is still there for him? And if so, what does he need to do to try and get there?
I think he's one of those guys you fill out a bullpen with. I don't think he's a guy that you want in high leverage situations with the game on the line. If you need him to eat an inning here and there, whatever. But I just don't think that he has enough to be trusted in those positions. And he's striking out more than he has in the past. And he still has a high ground ball rate, and his FIP and ERA do look good, but I just don't have that level of trust in him yet. And it's another highlight of what the Reds need, which is a bullpen arm that they trust besides Pagan.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 guys right now, it feels like, at least, that have Tito's trust in high leverage moments. Obviously, Pagan that we talked about, and Tony Santillan, who, again, tonight, I thought it was interesting, and certainly interested in your opinion on this too, but Tony Santillan came in the 8th to face 6, 7, 8 in the lineup, and then obviously he turned to Pagan. Both of these guys have been overworked of late, so I don't think that really plays into it, obviously, but you go to Pagan then in the 9th, gives up the run, and ultimately the Reds lose. I don't necessarily know that you could have or should have changed that at all, but do you give any thought there to going someone else in the 8th and then Santillan in the 9th to face the top of the lineup, knowing that you potentially could face 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, I think that either way that you play it, either Pagan earlier or Pagan in the 9th or Santillan in the 9th or whatnot, I guess it may just come down to which pitcher felt better. I don't know if Santillan was going to feel better than I mean, I guess I don't know. They used them both. I don't really think it matters. I'm trying to think about the lineup, how it was structured. But it was top of the order for the Dodgers, and I guess that they just trust Pagan more to face that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think they trust both of them. And I'm not saying that anything should have or would have changed. And ultimately, Santillan in the 8th and Pagan in the 9th is not something that you really have to worry about. And at that point, it was a tie game, though. And so your job as a manager is to either, get to extras or at least put your team in a position where a run wins the game. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But the one of the moments for me was in, if I can find it real quick, in the 7th inning, Graham Ashcraft obviously struggling. You've got Freddie Freeman coming up to the plate, left-handed batter. At that point, Ashcraft had struck out Rojas, given up a walk to Conforto, a single to Betts, struck out Ohtani, and then gave up a single to Will Smith, an RBI single to Will Smith. So you're sitting there at 4-3. You've got a 1-run lead with Freddie Freeman coming up to the plate, who was 2 for 3 on the day, facing a right-handed pitcher in Graham Ashcraft. Another one of those needs for this team at the deadline is a left-handed bullpen shutdown guy, because despite having 3 guys out there, I don't know that any of them are considered really left-on-left shutdown guys. And that was a moment for me, at least, where it felt like Tito maybe overthought it or maybe didn't think about it enough at all. I don't know. But pitching to Freddie Freeman in that situation with Graham Ashcraft instead of going to a lefty, maybe because you don't have a shutdown lefty in the bullpen, really felt like a missed opportunity and, again, led to a tie ball game.
Yeah, and that's just part of it. Like you said, there's not like a lefty specialist like you would know. Taylor Rogers was somebody who we thought maybe that could be the answer this year, and it just hasn't worked out to that level, and he's just not that good. And I don't know if that's something that the Reds are going to add. They should, in my opinion, and they're going to be out there on the market. You can find left-handed pitching out of the bullpen on the market each year, and it usually doesn't cost all that much. The problem is, are they just going to move on from these other guys? I would love to move on from Rogers, but like a Mole or a Seuss, I guess you just need to keep them around too. But to me, it's like just redo the bullpen as much as you possibly can. Like bring in more guys that you trust, especially because these guys are getting worn out now. Like I would bring in multiple bullpen arms.
So my question for you is, who's safe in the bullpen? Is there anyone outside of Santillan and Pagan in your eyes right now that is safe? And I'm not talking about roles. I think Pagan's closer role is up for grabs. I think obviously Santillan is trusted right now in high leverage roles, but is there anyone outside of those two that you think is like truly safe?
I mean, in my eyes, not necessarily. I mean, I think Scott Barlow at least has their trust to some extent. He doesn't have my trust, but I think he's a Tito guy, and I think that he will stick around. But you could send down like an Ashcraft, or you can move on from these guys, honestly. Like to me, it's like they need an influx of some new arms in the bullpen, not only because of talent, but just because these guys are getting worn down. And if it means calling up a guy and trading a guy or bringing somebody in, there's also going to be players who hit the waiver wire, and do not make me out to say those guys are saving the season. But if you needed to get somebody in just to pitch for a couple of days until the deadline or shortly thereafter, they could go that route as well. But to me, I just want some new bodies out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, right? If you can't trust to go to Sam Moll in that situation, a guy who last year pitched really well, this year has struggled in his limited opportunities due to injury, and then he spent a lot of time at AAA. Obviously, you mentioned Taylor Rogers. Brent Suter has reverse splits. Even though he's pitched pretty well in opportunities, he also can get smacked around. There is no lefty specialist in that bullpen, and so it leaves Tito in a tough situation, because for those that want to say that Tito's washed and that Tito's managing old school and he's not managing the way he should, I would argue that he doesn't have the tools to really manage the way we would like him to manage this team, even if he was in the right mindset. And I don't know that he is or that he isn't. Right now, he just seems to be relying on guys that he trusts. And unfortunately for the Reds, that's guys like Scott Barlow, that's guys like Santiago Espinal, that's guys like Connor Joe. I mean, I don't know what these guys have done to earn that trust. Some of them, maybe Gavin Lux, at least he gets on base. Santiago Espinal of late has been getting on base, but I can't imagine if you gave Dave Roberts this lineup that the Reds are sitting in any real different of a position, just given the talent.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about that with the deadline stuff.
We sure will. Look, let's take a quick break, take a breath, and I'll remind you all that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between. It's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay to not be okay. All right, let's talk about the offensive production real quick, Clay. Jake Fraley, quite frankly, has been on a bit of a roll here in July since coming back from the IL. Hits a 2-run home run tonight. At least getting a little bit of power out of him, some extra base hits. I'm happy for Jake Fraley. I'm not saying that he's really like an everyday answer by any means, but when given opportunities, Jake Fraley, at least of late, has certainly answered the bell.
Yeah, and I think that he does have a very capped ceiling. When it comes to guys who don't hit the ball very hard, like they're almost always going to have a capped ceiling. His average exit velocity is 85 miles an hour, and he can get to some home runs when he gets out in front of a ball and pulls it to right field at Great American Ballpark, but so can a lot of players. So he's a perfectly fine bench piece if you want to keep him, but I think he is part of the thing that we've been saying since before the season, that the team had too many fourth outfielders on this team. And I'm glad that he's playing well and he's helping the Reds kind of keep going right now. But I do think ultimately you have to get a better player than Jake Fraley.
Speaking of fourth outfielders and guys that, whether they need to be replaced or certainly seem to be an option to be replaced, Noelvi Marte with a home run tonight. Nice to see him hit. He's offensively been providing the Reds with some power and some excitement. But the Reds seem pretty set on replacing him at third base. They clearly view him as a defensive liability. Replacing him regularly later in games for a defensive replacement. Again, tonight, Santiago Espinal comes into the game. He goes to third. Noelvi Marte out to replace in the outfield with Connor Joe. So, I mean, for you, where does Noelvi Marte fit into the puzzle moving forward with this team, at least for the rest of this year?
Yeah, I think the rest of this year won't see any drastic changes from kind of what they've done. But in the future, I think he should be in the outfield. And that's something that I had talked about in prior years, I had actually thought he should move to second base at one point, but then I was like, okay, just put him in right field. The Reds did not have many up-and-coming prospects in the outfield. He's hitting the ball well. His defense at third is just not good at all. And like you said, it's just a complete liability. So for me, depending on how things go at the deadline, depending on if Sal Stewart can get called up at some point, I think Marte kind of stays in this limbo stage of where he is defensively, and maybe he gets more reps in the outfield.
All right, we do have some super chats. First, Alex Unser Ballman, member of 20 Months, said textbook over managing. I assume that he's referencing specifically pinch hitting Espinal in the fifth, but appreciate you, Alex, for your support. Big Red Machine 76. This one's for you, Clay. Someone explained why Joe was in right field at all. Hines could have pinch hit in that spot, and with his speed would have caught that bloop single that Joe was afraid to charge.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, why does this team like Connor Joe so much, and why have they been so hesitant to play Reese Hines and then play him in spots that are high pressure instead of giving him some runway? Bottom line, neither one of these players are that good. That is it. Like, neither one of these players is that good. So we can complain about them here or there, or compliment them here or there. At the end of the day, neither one of them have the ceiling or the longevity to be part of this future. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess Tito tends to go with vets.
Yeah, look, I mean, not only the bloop hit to right field, but I also felt like Gavin Lux had a chance on that ball to left field a couple batters later. And Putrid Talent puts it to $2 super chat. Pitching doesn't matter if there's no D behind him, and that was 2 outs that maybe could have been caught that ultimately weren't. That maybe led to this team ultimately losing tonight's game. Putrid Talent also said $2 extremely outmanaged tonight. Do you feel like Terry was outmanaged tonight?
No, I think that he may have overmanaged a little bit at times, but I didn't think he was outmanaged necessarily. I mean, again, we have limited players, and like when you have limited players, it's hard to pull certain levers. And I think his hands were kind of tied in situations tonight specifically.
Yeah. All right, look, let's get into what I think most people and most of this conversation really is leading into, and that's the impending trade deadline here. Just 2 days away now. You put out an article with Just Baseball just 2 days ago saying the Cincinnati Reds should prepare to take a risk at the deadline. So I'm going to put you on a bit of a spot, and if you want to reuse some of the info from your article, feel free. But I'm going to put you on the spot and give you Nick Krall's seat for a moment. If you're sitting here as the general manager of the Cincinnati Reds on Tuesday, July 29th at 10:38 p.m. Eastern, after just watching the Reds lose to the Dodgers 5-4, where's your head at? What's your first call? And who's your primary target?
I still want to go to first base because I think that there's a bat in Yandy Diaz there that's somebody you can get without having to completely break the bank. And it's really so much for me. I see that as the highest ceiling offensive bat that the Reds would potentially get. Would I love for them to go out and get, name whoever the best players are? Sure. But I think Diaz is a manageable get and somebody who actually fits in for this year and next year and gives you a much better bat going down the stretch. And he's not very expensive, which is part of why I think Cincinnati will like him. I then shift straight to the bullpen.
Real quick on Yandy Diaz. So Buster Olney put out a tweet earlier today. So other teams perceive Tampa Bay, which slumped through a brutal July, has joined the Diamondbacks as one of the primary sellers in the market. Starting pitcher Zach Littell. One evaluator said, quote, he's going to be traded. Relief pitcher Garrett Clevenger and Peter Fairbanks. Yandy Diaz, Josh Lau, following the trade of Danny Jansen to Milwaukee. One rival exec, however, believes Yandy Diaz would have to be, quote, pried away from the Rays given his $12 million option for next season.
Well, pry him away then. I mean, they can do it.
What's it take?
Part of the premise of this article was the Reds have constantly walked on eggshells and they have never done much of a risk. The few times that they have, did those prospects come back to burn them? Not particularly. And I'm not saying that should automatically be applied to every trade going forward, but how far are they getting with their current strategy? Like, it is okay to trade some prospects, especially once you start having 40-man crunches, especially once you have, some players kind of fall off and you wish you could have traded them. Think of how many players are trying to right now trade Reds players and prospects who a year to a year and a half ago they said were untouchable. Like, I think that they have to make something to beef up this lineup, to inject some fuel into this team and help out the bullpen.
Yeah. All right. Bullpen you said was next. Go ahead.
Bullpen, I mean, you can go to Minnesota. They have a number of arms from Stewart, Jacks, Duran. They have some lefties. Like, you can go that route. A lot of teams are going to go that route. But essentially, like, these bullpen arms every year at the deadline get moved all the time. And it doesn't really matter to me whichever name you prefer over that guy or this guy, as long as they're bringing in major league caliber and higher quality bullpen arms. I'm kind of fine with it. I mean, pick your poison of who you like or not. But the Griffin Jacks move in particular would be something I would love because he can be a closer. Like he's not somebody who has to be in that 8th inning. He can be that 9th inning guy who you trust in the highest leverage of the game, and he can strike guys out. And I just think adding someone like him would really, really establish the back of the bullpen.
So speaking of the back of the bullpen, article earlier today from the New York Times, from the Athletic, I should say, said, quote, although the Reds were mentioned more as a potential trading partner with their in-state rivals for the services of Emmanuel Clase to bolster the team's bullpen for a playoff run. Now that Clase is suspended and that kind of changes a lot, there are guys on the Guardians still that are drawing interest of many. One name in particular that many have mentioned is Stephen Kwan. Is he a realistic target that is going to get moved or could be moved at this deadline? And if so, what does it take to get him?
I love Kwan. I think he would be great to put in this outfield. My one reservation with it is I think it's going to cost a ton. I think the Guardians are in a position where they will say, yeah, sure, you want Stephen Kwan? Okay, here's the price. And if anyone's willing to come to it, we will trade. I don't think that this is a situation where they're looking to move him. They would probably be willing to. They've been willing to make those type of trades in the past, but I think you're going to have to overpay to get him. And as much as I love him, and I know Tito would love him, he's the kind of put the ball in play, a similar enough player to like a TJ Friedel's offensive style that I think that Tito would love it. I just struggle to see the Reds doing that particular move.
Okay. Outfield, though, is obviously a target. Byron Buxton was a name that was thrown around by some for a little while. As Byron Buxton does, he is now on the 10-day injured list, left rib cage inflammation. Do you think that stops him from potentially being moved at all, or do you still think that a team takes a chance on him?
I don't think he gets moved. He wants to stay in Minnesota, he said, and he has a no trade clause. So he literally can do exactly what he said he wanted to do. I'm going to trust the words that came out of his mouth. So I don't think he gets moved.
Obviously tonight, Nick Lodolo shoved and shown yet again why he's capable of being a front end of this rotation starter. But, David Brown brings up a point, and, the conversation has been had multiple times. And I know Nick talked about it even last night on this post-game show. If you want to fix the outfield, trade Lodolo, said David Brown. Lodolo now career high 22 starts for the Reds this year. No necessarily signs of slowing down with that. But for the right piece, or maybe the question is more so, is there a piece that you would be willing to part with Nick Lodolo for in return?
Yeah, and I touched on this in my article about kind of an aggressive type of move that they can move is moving Lodolo. Now, the only way that makes sense to me is if the return is somebody of a similar type player. Like, we could argue Jarren Duran's the similar type player, but somebody like that, a really proven player with control where it helps each team. It's a unique trade. It's unlikely to happen because those trades are difficult to do, and that's why we don't see them as often. But I think that type of avenue could make sense. And then you can also acquire a starter to fill the innings behind from where Lodolo was traded. So that's the way I see it. Obviously, it sounds far-fetched, and that's why it's unlikely, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll echo probably what Nick said, but this would be a situation where the Reds' thought process, and again, not my thought process, I'm predictively speaking about the Reds here. Wow, Lodolo's been injured a lot. He's pitching the best that he'll probably ever pitch. Let's go ahead and capitalize on this value. That's one angle it could be looked at. I don't necessarily see it that way, but I understand if they were to.
Yeah. Some other interesting tidbits that have come out either today or in the recent past that I want to talk about. Buster Olney again earlier today. The Cincinnati Reds are among the teams who have been in contact with the Diamondbacks about Eugenio Suarez. But if Arizona finds a deal elsewhere with the high price set on the slugger, the Reds may well pivot to another third baseman on the market. Gio Urshela of the A's, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa of the Pirates, or one of the Mets infielders, Brett Beatty, Luis Angel Acuna, or Mike Vientos, all possibilities. Let's start with Eugenio Suarez. Then we'll get into the rest of that because there's a lot to talk about in the rest of that. Suarez obviously gets hit in the hand last night. Reports today are that he's fine. He'll be back in the lineup tomorrow. Knowing that, at least from what we've heard, the conversations previously with other teams have stopped when the Diamondbacks said they wanted major league talent in return for Suarez. What type of major league talent are we hearing? Do they want back? And do the Reds have pieces that would make sense? And if so, what does that package look like?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be arms for them. I think that they're going to want starting pitching. Zach Gallen will be gone after this year. Merrill Kelly will be gone after this year. Brandon Pratt has not developed as they wish. They're going to want starting pitching. Shortstop is shirt up for them. Second base is shirt up for them long term. And Jordan Lawler is probably their top prospect, is probably going to move to third. So, with all that said, I think that they're looking for arms. Do you think the Reds have what it takes to match their needs? Would that be a Rhett Lauder? Is that the type of avenue, somebody who could theoretically be in their rotation at the end of this year and into next year? Is that the level of prospect that they're looking for? And is that somebody that you think they would want, or do you think it could be more of a secondary piece? Because I see this deadline being pretty weak, and I think someone like Suarez is going to get bid up to a point that some team's going to match it.
That's the biggest challenge, is that there's not a ton of high-end talent that was expected to be available. And so for that small handful of talent that is expected to be available, like a Eugenio Suarez, the price is going to be astronomical.
Yeah.
And all due respect to Rhett Lauder, but with the injury that he's dealing with right now, I just don't see a scenario with it where a team, especially where they have the amount of bidders that the Diamondbacks are expected to have, that he could possibly be a cornerstone piece of that puzzle. I just don't see that personally.
He would have to be in some combination. I mean, it's very unlikely that Suarez is dealt 1-for-1.
Yeah, no, I for sure. I'm okay if they really believe in Rhett Lauder. I'm totally fine with that. The conversation, again, these are all rumors and reports, but there was conversation that the Diamondbacks had their eye on one specific player from the Reds that the Reds apparently weren't interested in moving. I have to believe that someone like Matt McLean, maybe. I can't imagine that there's someone else other than Ellie that they would realistically ask for, that the Reds would say that that's like a non-starter, unless it's one of the starting pitchers, right? Maybe the Reds aren't willing to move Hunter Green, which they shouldn't. Nick Lodolo, one of those guys, or Chase Burns. But it is interesting to figure out, what they're willing to do. And ultimately, and this leads into the future conversation, the Reds very clearly, based on all reports, want to upgrade third base. Okay. So they don't trust Noelvi Marte defensively there. They don't trust Santiago Espinal offensively there. And so, like you said, they're not getting enough offensively out of first base. They're not getting enough offensively out of third base. Gio Urshela, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa do nothing for me. Literally nothing. Like IKF, you're just adding another Santiago Espinal. What is, like, I saw your reaction, but put it in words for those that are listening in the podcast.
Gio Urshela is bad. He's mediocre defender, and he just does not hit the ball hard at all. He doesn't hit extra base hits. He doesn't even hit singles. He really does nothing. And that's why he was on waivers last year, and that's why he ended up kind of bouncing around and having to, kind of take a path less chosen, let's say, this year. So I'm out on him. IKF, good defender, can play a few positions. He's a better in theory guy than in practice. Like, oh yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he's kind of what you wish Espinal was at, all the time, but IKF does not change the trajectory of the team at all. At all. Neither does Gio Urshela. Neither does, was there a third name in that report besides
Well,
Suarez?
the third is the trio of Mets infielders that I want to talk about separately, because I do think that there might be some starters in that conversation
That
versus
one is
Urshela and
different. That one is
IKF. So
Yeah.
the conversation with the Mets then is, again, the question is, who are they interested in? Because what we had heard was that the White Sox wanted Mark Vientos back in a Lewis Robert trade, and that was a non-starter.
Yeah.
So I don't know why there would be a thought that the Reds might be able to land Mark Vientos if the Mets aren't going to move him. Now, again, you might know better than I do. I don't know why the Mets would be selling any of these guys right now anyway. They're all playing somewhat regularly. The Mets are in the hunt. They're, do they have someone else
The Mets are in a position that is very unique because I think that they know Jeff McNeil, for those who don't know, has been playing center field and has actually been pretty good. I think the Mets are going to acquire a center fielder, either Luis Robert or Cedric Mullins. McNeil moves back to second base, which has been kind of a problem for there. Luis Angel Acuna started there. He couldn't hit, but he does enough of everything else. So they kind of kept him around as a utility guy. Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos. Beatty's actually gotten better this year and has had some good stretches, improved defense. And Mark Vientos was kind of seen as this can be the DH / first baseman of the future if Pete Alonso isn't around. Well, last year's Mark Vientos looks totally different than this year's Mark Vientos, just not making nearly enough impact. So I think that the Mets are realizing we have these three pieces on the roster that are young players with control. We don't want these three, all three. We want two of the three on the 40-man roster who are going to be in the minors. And to me, Luis Angel Acuna is probably the one that they would want to move the most. But he's also the one that can be the most versatile piece for them in a playoff run with pinch running and pinch hitting. I don't know why I gave you that much info on the Mets. That was too much. But there's all the info.
Again, you know better than I do. Reports within the last 5 minutes. Juan Soto left tonight's game after falling.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now.
Off his foot in the third inning. He did finish his at bat, but was replaced in the field the following half inning. If Soto is out for any extended period of time with a fracture or anything else, does that change the Mets' approach to this deadline?
Yeah,
I can't imagine he'd be out a ton of time, obviously, but
yeah, he was walking around. It looked pretty routine and take him out, but they're going to be aggressive. The Mets are going to be aggressive, and they need some help in the outfield. So I think it could, obviously press the panic button would all depend on how serious the injury was. To me, being a non-doctor, sitting here half podcasting, half watching live, it didn't look that serious. So I would imagine he's back soon enough, and it's not a position that they have to go out and try to replace his production.
All right, we're talking about third base. Another name that was thrown out today as drawing interest from multiple teams is Athletics third baseman and left fielder Miguel Andujar. Andujar hitting .290 on the year, but hitting .422 against left-handed pitching. He's set to become a free agent after this season. Is that a name that draws interest from you at all?
Yeah, I actually wrote an article all about him at Just Baseball about a month ago. And what he's really done is when he came up with the Yankees, everyone thought he was a power hitter. And he's kind of completely flipped. In order to get back into the majors, he's kind of turned into more of a contact hitter. So he's not the power hitter that he came up with. He's a totally different player. To me, great against lefties, will still frustrate the hell out of you in the field. He's not miserable in left. They've tried to move him to third. Do not look at that as, oh my gosh, this guy can play third. In my mind, what that was all about was Nick Kurtz was hitting, so he had to play first. Tyler Soderstrom then had to move from first to left, and Brent Rooker is the DH. They had to keep Andujar in the lineup somehow. They were getting nothing at third because who was their third baseman? Gio Urshela. So that's where an Andujar started playing third base. I don't see him as an option there. He's a miserable defender, but if you want him to replace Connor Joe in that first base DH outfield, I would love that.
All right. I'm going to switch gears now to everybody's favorite trade target, Lewis Robert. Report yesterday from Ken Rosenthal. The White Sox are looking for at least a team's top 10 prospect in any trade involving Lou Bob. We had heard reports that obviously they are looking for major league talent as well. So is Lewis Robert an interest to you? And if so, again, talking about packages, what does it take and what are you willing to give up?
Yes, I would be interested. I don't believe what the White Sox are saying at all because they also said that they'd be willing to pick up his option. Are the White Sox a team that would pay a struggling player $20 million? No. They've never once shown that this is really the type of hardball that they play. So I don't believe the reports on what he's going to cost. And I think he will get traded. And essentially, he has a option, so he can be a rental. Also, he can be around for 2 more years. So it's kind of this thing where you can acquire him, and if getting him out of the horrible situation he's in Chicago, suddenly he kind of clicks into the player that he has enough talent to be, then you can keep him if you wish. He's been awesome in July. I think as of yesterday, it was a 159 WRC plus in July. So I like him. I would be willing to try it. I just am hesitant about the return that they're kind of rumored to give.
All right, Clay, we're going to have a little bit of fun here. So don't take this too serious, but I'm going to entertain Ross Courtney 9913 in our chat. And
okay,
I'm going to paraphrase the question, but long story short, Elly De La Cruz is not going to be a Cincinnati Red in 5 years. Ross wants us to jump the gun and move him now. So the question is, knowing what the Nationals were able to move Juan Soto for and how that has kind of reset their franchise, first and foremost, how much worse are the Reds without Elly De La Cruz? And then second, how mind-blowing of an offer would it take for you to give up Elly De La Cruz today?
I wouldn't. And there's a reason why teams don't do this. He has, 4 additional years of control? How many players of his caliber have been moved with 4 additional years of control? Do you know?
None.
Because it doesn't happen. And there's a reason why. This is exactly why we don't see it happen. Right or wrong, history is the best indication of the future. And if it's never happened before, I don't think the Reds are magically going to do it. It has more to do with just what may make sense. Like, this guy's a marketing tool. We saw the Elly De La Cruz bobblehead. Like, it's the same reason why Paul Skeens isn't getting moved, even though that should make more sense than Elly. But I'll answer it just to do it. I just don't want you to clip this answer. But if you wanted to trade Elly De La Cruz and you pulled that off, you would probably be disappointed in the return because it's so hard to match value for someone that young. The Nationals knocked it out of the park. The Nationals legitimately got one of the best trade returns for a quote-unquote star in Major League history. And that's just because so many of them fail. When you go back and you look at the Miggy Cabrera and you look at the Christian Yelich deals and all these kind of massive deals and how many pieces fail, like, I think it's so risky, and that's part of the reason you don't see it is because a lot of the returns don't necessarily live up.
Yeah, just as a reminder, so Juan Soto was traded with 1.5 years left on his contract. He was traded, at the deadline in 2022, along with Josh Bell, and in exchange they got C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel, James Wood, Yarlin Susana, and Luke Voigt. The reason that trade is looked back on as so positive is because C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, and James Wood have panned out the way that you had hoped. But that doesn't always happen. And so moving a guy like Elly for, even if it's 5 top prospects, like, you look at even the Reds' top 5 prospects, how many of them are actually going to make it to the majors and how many of them are going to make significant impact at the majors? You certainly hope all 5 of them. But again, for that trade, you look back on it now so positively, but look back on it so positive because of the success of those three guys really. I don't know. It's certainly a crazy idea. I don't think there's any world that the Reds trade him today. Now, when we revisit this in 2028, because his contract's up after 29, I think. So when we visit this at the trade deadline in 2028, talk to me then.
Years. Yeah.
But there's zero conversation today. And to answer the other part of the question, I think the Reds are significantly worse without Elly De La Cruz in their lineup today, because even though, and this is crazy to say, he leads the league in errors with 15 errors. He still brings you such value defensively and offensively that you move Matt McLain. Let's say you move Matt McLain over to shortstop. You're left with maybe Gavin Lux and Santiago Espinal as your platoon every day at second base. Like, it just not.
You would hope there would be a 10% chance that if you got 5 top prospects, one of them would be as good as Elly is, right? I mean, just going off of previous, if you look at a top 100 list, 20% of those guys end up being good and another 5% end up being great. Like, what are the chances that you get multiple of those? So to me, it's not right now. Future years, absolutely, there's a discussion. It's just really difficult to match value when there's this much untapped potential and this much control.
I'm gonna say, when you factor in obviously baseball, but also factor in the completely negative vibes that you're going to put into this clubhouse and into this city, moving Elly De La Cruz at least alters your record negatively by 10 games this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
at least
there's some really bad optics around it too, which the Reds are no stranger to bad optics and whatnot. So I'm not saying that's necessarily something that they care that much about, but that's a lot of time on trading a player who won't get traded.
Yeah, that we just spent way too much time talking about Elly De La Cruz in a trade. All right, Clay, any last targets that we haven't talked about, or maybe better talk about some of the prospects from the Reds organization?
And I wrote about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wrote about Taylor Ward today. A really interesting and great fit for the Reds. Wouldn't be, again, he's kind of like what I said about Yandy Diaz, where he's not like the cream of the crop, but he's kind of that secondary piece that would be really strong to fit in the lineup and has control through next year as well. So that's another name that I think is a realistic kind of bigger name that I think could actually happen.
Yeah, Taylor Ward, a name that Reds fans have for many years now seemingly looked at as a potential target for the Reds. So with that, real quick, want to take a look at Reds MILB. Apologize in advance. I'm probably not going to do as well as Nick normally does, but we're going to knock it out nonetheless. Omaha defeats the Louisville Bats 5-2. Obviously, the big story there, Hunter Green, his first rehab, well, I guess his second rehab start, only goes 2 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, all of them earned, 6 strikeouts, though, on the outing, did give up 2 solo home runs in each of the first 2 innings, was on a pretty strict pitch count, so not surprising that he only went 2 1/3 through 50 pitches. So Hunter Green expected to make one more start this weekend before the Reds take some time to decide what to do with him. Blake Dunn in that game, 0 for 4. Other than that, not a whole lot to talk about, as it quite frankly seemed to be a little bit of a B lineup from Louisville today. Down the road for me, at least, Chattanooga, they fall 13-6 to Knoxville. That one, the final. Chattanooga now 52-41 on the season. Edwin Arroyo, 1 for 4 with a run and a walk. Leo Balcazar, 3 for 5 on the day, 2 runs, 4 RBIs. That's a kid too that has really increased his value over the last month or so. Cam Collier, 1 for 3 with an RBI. Jay Allen, 1 for 4. Ethan O'Donnell, 0 for 4 on the day. He was a name that I saw some people throw around as a potential piece in in deals, and Dominic Patelli, one of the Knicks' favorites, 2 for 4 on the night. Elsewhere, the Dayton Dragons, they fall 6-2 to West Michigan. Nestor Laurent, 4 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Victor Acosta, 0 for 4. Carlos Jorge, 0 for 4 and an RBI. Yerlin Confidant, 1 for 4 with a run. Daytona Tortugas win 6-2 over Palm Beach. Quite frankly, just not a whole lot to talk about in that one from prospect perspective. The Bridge League, though, Clay, did start today, and that is the first opportunity for Reds draft picks to get some action in the Reds organization. So did see some clips out there of that today. So trying to see if I can find anything, but Steele Hall did play in that. Don't know where to go to find details on that. So
he
apologize.
He was at shortstop, and I saw one clip of him, and honestly, I think the swing's pretty ugly, but he's so young and has a long way to go, so I'm not that worried about that. But I haven't watched a ton of him or anything, but the little I have is a bit of a troubling swing. But I think he's going to be a high contact guy with a lot of speed. I mean, he has some crazy speed. So super young. We'll see what happens there and see how that develops. I mean, it's going to be years.
Yeah, the clip that I saw, probably the same one that you saw, was from Jesus Cano, a writer for Baseball America. His first at bat, infield single, where he ran from home to first in 3.96. And for context, at least from what I had seen, if I remember correctly, major league record is somewhere in the range of like 3.95. So definitely bringing some speed to the Bridge League there for the Reds. So shout out to that. Otherwise, MILB, what's coming up? Reds obviously return to action tomorrow to face off with the Dodgers yet again. That first pitch scheduled for 7:10 Eastern time. Shohei Ohtani will take the mound for the Dodgers. So make sure you check out that one. Do you remember who's starting for the Reds? I'm drawing a blank right now, and I hate the Reds' new website.
I honestly haven't looked yet.
It's all good. I'll find it
What
in
do we?
2 seconds, I'm sure.
Is this tomorrow, you said?
Yeah. Tomorrow, the Reds are going with Nick Martinez. Apologize for that.
We should just ask the people in the chat. They're smarter
I
than
know
us either way. I mean,
they chimed in before I ever found
they're
it.
quick, man. They're quick.
They are. Shohei Ohtani, 0-0 on the season, 1.5 ERA, 13 strikeouts. Nick Martinez, 9-9 on the season, 4.69 ERA, 86 strikeouts. Again, that first pitch scheduled for 7 o'clock. Clay, any final thoughts on the evening? I know it's been a heartbreaker and we've talked a lot, but any final thoughts you want to share with the people since you're not on the show very often?
No, not really. I mean, I think they've all heard from me enough in the past. It's probably time to retire me. You know, I'm kind of like the alumni game. Once a year, they stroll me out here and let me get in front of the mic.
Well, we appreciate you joining for sure. And Nick's due to have a baby here in the next month or so. So we may be calling you back. Who knows?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, don't worry. Nick and Trace will be back tomorrow night to walk you through post game for that Nick Martinez versus Shohei Ohtani matchup. Until then, for Clay Snowden, I'm Craig Sandlin. This has been Chatterbox Reds. Appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll see you next time.